All right, we're going to continue on now in Revelation chapter 13, verses 11 to 18 today. Before we do that, let's quick review, get the setup before we dive into that passage. Back in chapter 12, we had the drama unfolding, the great sign in heaven, the woman and the dragon. The dragon, as you know, is clearly stated to us who the dragon is, and that is
Satan.
Satan, the devil, right? The accuser of the brethren. And it's about his fall, but he's the spiritual enemy of the church. He's the unseen force, the father of lies, the father of evil. But we do not interact with him physically. You'll notice that his battle in chapter 12 is in heaven with Michael and the angels fighting against him. He is thrown down and sent to earth, where now he gives trouble to us here on the earth. But the way he brings us trouble is through a mediator. He doesn't do it even here directly. And who is the dragon's representative on earth? And that's what we looked at here in chapter 13. So what does John see next? Well, let's read that. Bob Thomas, would you read chapter 13, verses just 1 to 4 as a recap from last week?
And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it, the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshiped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?"
Okay. Now, by the end of this study today, we will know for sure who the beast is. We're going to figure that one out today. But what is clear about the beast is there are many interpretations of what exactly this means. But what is clear is that the dragon is, who is the devil, gives his power and authority to this beast rising out of the sea. A beast with 10 horns, and the horns are symbolic of what? What does the horn represent? Remember?
Power.
It's power. And the number 10 is that complete power he's given to. He has 7 heads and 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. It's interesting, the heads, I forgot about this, but the beast is described again. I think it's in Revelation 17.
Yep.
And it says of the beast, it tells you what the meaning of the 7 heads are. I forgot about that. We hadn't gotten there yet. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see. Remember what verse it is?
Yes, it's number 9, verse 9.
Yeah.
Verse 9. This calls for the mind of wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. So the beast with 7 heads, he says in Revelation 17 that the 7 heads are 7 mountains. Do you know how they would have understood that at that time, what the 7 mountains were?
Yep, Rome is the city on 7 hills.
Yeah, Rome is the city on 7 hills. In fact, yeah. So much of this is pointing us to Rome. The description of the beast, though, describes him as like a lion, a leopard, and a bear. And we saw those, if you remember, back in Daniel 7. These were the beasts representing the different empires. So you get a sense that the beast is, he could be having a bigger understanding of what the beast really is, that it's not necessarily one particular person or kingdom, but that there is, it's like a leopard. That was the Greeks were like a beast, or a bear. The Persians were like a beast too, and the lion, like the Babylonians, were like beasts. And then this unnamed, on this fourth beast, this terrifying beast is like Rome. And so there are some who interpret this and say, look, the beast is clearly the political powers and kingdoms of men opposed to Christ, and that are persecuting the church, inspired by the devil, and that it's not one particular empire, but anytime there is an empire, political power opposed to Christ and his people, you're dealing with the beast, and that it takes different shapes and forms as he's described here. It's not one particular one, it takes different shapes. So the beast today, if that's the interpretation, is where do you see the beast today? What political powers are persecuting the church?
Rome,
What's that?
our own.
Our own. Yeah, we're starting to see the beast rise in our own country, for one thing. You're right. Absolutely. You're seeing it in places like North Korea and China, perhaps in Russia, perhaps, in
Iran.
where's that?
Iran.
In Iran, absolutely. Iran, these places, Saudi Arabia, and just Afghanistan, these places where God's people are under pressure from these political powers. And they really do. They are, the beast is a perfect description of it, because they are without conscience, like a beast, without compassion. They're pure appetite and power. Nothing personal. I mean, it's not even like a sense of we hate you. It's just that we are voracious in our appetites, and does the wolf does not hate the sheep. He loves the sheep in his own way as he devours them. That's what it's about. And so that's how these empires are proclaimed, and they worship the dragon. Of the peoples of the world are enamored with these great powers. That's exactly how it was at that time in Rome. Everything, if you remember, was done for the glory of Rome. It was all about that, the magnificent buildings and statues and roads and all that they developed. The glory of Rome was a resounding cry, and there was a worship of the beast in that sense. They literally worshiped these emperors and adored and saw them as their great saviors and providers. But at the heart of it, it's demonic. It is of the devil. It's the devil who gave the power to these empires. It was not God who gave this wicked power to Rome. It was the dragon that does this. All right, let's continue there. The beast, we get a little more description of the beast here, and we got that last time. So Liz, would you mind reading that for us, verses 5 to 10?
Sure, I just shoved a peanut in my mother hole. So, sorry. And the beast was given a mouth utterly haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is the call for the endurance and faith of the saints.
Okay. I have lost my thing here for a second. Hang on. I got to pull it back up again.
Pastor, can you hear me?
Yes.
I only have pictures of the people.
Yeah.
I don't have the computer.
Yeah, that's my fault. I got you now.
Oh, there we are. There we
Yeah.
are. I got
Yeah,
it.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
So I have somehow my texting is linked to my computer here and interrupting me. I got to tell people don't text in this hour. So, all right. So this is what we covered last week a little bit about what the beast will be doing. He speaks about the trouble that the beast will be bringing. And what will he's given this power and authority from the dragon. And what does he do with that power and authority?
He issues blasphemous words, for one thing.
Yeah. Yep. He exalts himself, blasphemous words, haughty talk. Go ahead.
He's allowed to make war and to conquer
Yep.
the
And
saints.
who does he target? He targets the saints. He targets the saints. And no, that's an important phrase there. The saints, those who are of God. He's not talking about a particular ethnic group of people, not even talking about like the church as an organization, but those who belong to God, the faithful ones, those who are proclaiming Christ and believe in him. He targets them. And he is able to conquer them, but not for all time. For how long?
3.5 years.
42 months, 3.5 years. And that's again reminding us that this is, you can count the days. It's a limited time. It's a partial trouble, but it will bring about the death of many, and many taken captive, and this call for endurance of the faith of saints. Well, now we turn to our passage today, and there's another beast coming now. Let's take a look at this one. Rob, would you get that for us? Rob Roy, 11 to 18.
11:18, okay. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
Okay. All right. So John now sees another beast. So now we have a dragon, and we have a first beast, and now we have a second beast. That second beast will go by a different name a little bit later on. You know how he's called after this?
The false prophet.
It's the false prophet. Okay. The two, what you see in the scriptures in Revelation, beautifully portrayed for us with this imagery, is the devil has really two mediators here on earth doing his business. He has that first beast, that political power and force oppressing, but then he has a second beast, a false prophet who's deceiving and leading people into calling them to worship the beast and deceiving them into that, even performing great signs. And so you see these false powers of darkness reigning politically, militarily, oppressing, but then you have deceptive voices on the inside bringing trouble. And that's exactly what we saw, if you remember, back in Revelation 2 and 3. Remember, he spoke to the churches, and they were always the same basic problems. Is they're dealing with the Nicolaitans, the false teachers. Remember this? Jezebel, all these false teachers in the church, or they're dealing with those who are killing them and persecuting them, putting them to death. Either the pressures coming from the outside to destroy them, or the pressure or the deception is coming from the inside. so that they will, in a sense, destroy themselves. Those are his basic tactics. The devil, the dragon has two. Not just, he doesn't just have military might, he also has deceivers. And there is a passage here. Let's walk through this a little bit and try to get a little more sense of it. About the second beast, he describes him in a different way. He's not terrifying, is he? Like a lion, a leopard, and a bear. How does this beast manifest?
As a lamb with two horns.
As a lamb with two horns, just like a little baby sheep. How innocent, right?
Mm.
But he has two horns, which is interesting. The horn, I remember, represents the power here, but what's the number two mean? When we talk about the two, remember in our book of Numbers here for Revelation, the different numbers have symbols. What does the number two mean?
The witness.
It's the witnesses, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what this beast is about, isn't it? He bears witness to the first beast. He deceives people so that they will worship the first beast and the image that beast makes. So in a sense, it's like he has this power like a lamb. He's kind of appears to be harmless and innocent, even Christ-like. And he has the two horns that he sort of bears witness, but the words coming out of his mouth, they're not coming from the lamb, are they?
Coming from the dragon.
Like a dragon.
And right, the father of lies. So the devil appears as an angel of light, does he not? And he comes, and this second beast is not terrifying like the first one is. He's seductive, and he seems harmless, but he speaks the lies of the evil one. Now, it exercises the authority of the first beast in his presence, and with the power he's given, what does he do with it? In verse 12?
Makes the people worship the
Yeah.
beast.
He makes the inhabitants of the earth worship the first beast. Okay. At the time of John is writing this, you have Rome and the imperial cult. So you have the emperor who is, whether it's Nero or Domitian or any of these guys, it was all about emperor worship. And you have these pagan cultists who would, lead the people into worshiping the emperor. And that whole phrase that was used is, what's the first, according to Romans 10, the confession of faith of the Christian is, he says, we confess with our mouth that
He's faithful
Jesus.
and just.
Jesus is Lord.
Jesus is Lord, right? That's the confession in Romans 10. We confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord. That was a direct confrontation to what was to be said at that time, which is Caesar is Lord. They believed Caesar to be the son of the gods, to be the one. And that's why the Christians were despised by many. So performs great signs. And then it says these signs that it performs. Let's talk about those a little bit. He makes fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. What is that sign? You've seen that sign before, right?
Yeah, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, fire comes down from heaven. Where have you seen someone calling fire down from heaven?
Wasn't it,
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel?
One of the prophets.
Yeah, one
Elijah.
of the prophets. Bob, I think you know what it is, right?
yeah, it's where the I'm terrible with the names, but the prophet challenged the rest of these holy men to, pray and bring all your worship down, and they could never get fire down from heaven, but he brought it down.
Yeah, who was that prophet?
Elijah.
That was
Elijah.
Elijah. He does it on a number of occasions. He does another time
Prophets.
later on where he calls fire down from heaven and consumes an army of like 50 men a few times. So yeah, so we see this, he does these miracles that kind of mimic that of Elijah in these confrontations. And the calling down of fire each time in those situations was to really bring the people. Remember when Elijah calls down fire from heaven at Mount Carmel, what was the people's response when they saw the fire come down? Do you remember?
They turn to God.
Yeah, they turned back to God. The Lord is God. This was a contest between Baal and God, and the Lord is God. And so the sense is that this second beast will come and do miracles, whatever these might look like. But the point is the people will see these things and will respond like, oh, the beast is God. He's the one. And they will, by the signs, he deceives those who dwell on the earth. And he has them make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Now that image for the beast, where have you seen stories of the making of a great image in the Bible that people were commanded to worship?
Nebuchadnezzar and his
Yeah.
96 gold
Yeah,
statue.
absolutely. That Nebuchadnezzar, they makes an image for the beast.
Mount
Nebuchadnezzar-
Sinai,
what's that again?
Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai, they make that image. You're right, the golden calf, right? In Daniel's time, I think it was Daniel chapter 3 with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He makes
Right.
that great image and cause them to throw them in the fire if they don't worship it. So this is kind of reminds us of that scene as well. But there's another passage that is referenced. I want to call your attention to is 2 Thessalonians 2. That speaks to something similar to what we're reading here. In 2 Thessalonians 2, Paul will speak about this man of lawlessness. And let's take a look at that passage. Elizabeth, would you read that for us?
Sure.
12.
1 to 12.
Yeah.
Now concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to him, we ask you, brothers, not to be quickly shaken in mind or alarmed, either by a spirit or a spoken word, or a letter seeming to be from us, to the effect that the day of the Lord has come. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? And you know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he is out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will kill with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception for those who are perishing, because they refused to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, God sends them a strong delusion, so that they may believe what is false, in order that all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness.
Now, this is an interesting passage because it does kind of parallel what we're reading in Revelation 13.
Mm.
This one of lawlessness who exalts himself, but then there's also this deceptive work of signs and wonders that lead people astray. This is a tricky passage because, you know, he references the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to him, seems to be a reference to his second coming and to our being resurrected to him. However, Paul talks about that the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. He talks about it as if this lawless one is already there at this time, and he has not fully been unleashed just yet. So it's a tricky thing to try to navigate the passage as it is with Revelation. How do you interpret it? Do we interpret it as something that happened at that time? Is it something that still has yet to happen? Or is it something that maybe happened then and sort of happens throughout? And there's a certain pattern to it that we follow. Those seem to be some of the basic options we're given as we look at it here. But whatever the case, notice what's the purpose of the false signs and wonders? He comes with the power of Satan, and he comes doing all these signs and wonders, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Signs and wonders were to prove that the prophets were truly from God. But magicians could do several of the
Yeah.
things that they could do, so.
Yeah,
And-
it's interesting. In the Old Testament with the prophets, there's two basic tests for the prophets here. So the prophets, the signs and wonders they performed certainly verified their position. However, God says to Moses at one point in the law, he says, if a prophet comes and does sort of wonders and miracles, but then teaches you to break the law or to go against the law, that's a false prophet. And I am sending him to test you
Mm.
whether you will believe my word. And so the same thing here, the Lord sends them, God sends them this delusion. It's the activity of Satan who does it all, but it's the Lord who ordains it and permits it, ordains it, sends this delusion. Why does he do it that way? According to this, 11 and 12, why does the Lord send this delusion? Why does he?
So
Oh,
that they may believe
test
what
us.
is false.
Believe what is false.
Yeah.
He wants the people to believe what is false. Well, why would he do that?
Judge
See what
us.
they do.
Yep. So that they may be condemned. And he wants them to believe what is false because they did not believe the truth. And they had pleasure in unrighteousness. So he sends them a strong delusion. So that's the whole idea, is these are people who do not love the truth and have no interest in righteousness. They take pleasure in their wickedness. And so the Lord hands them over and lets them see a powerful lie that will lead to their destruction.
Mm.
That's kind of what we're seeing in Revelation 13.
One of the things I just want to point out, if you could scroll up, so I don't have to pull up my Bible. In verse 6, it says, and you know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. I missed it. Hold on. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he is out of the way. I was taught at one point, and I just want your point of view, that this was the Holy Spirit keeping the lawlessness from taking over. And when Jesus comes back, the Holy Spirit leaves, and that's when all chaos breaks out.
Yeah, he doesn't really say. There's different interpretations of this one here
Mm.
about who is restraining it until.
Some
Because
say it's
part-
Michael,
Some say it's Archangel Michael. Yeah.
because he's the angel overseeing Israel.
Mhm.
So he that's why I was saying that time we looked at Daniel 12:1.
Yeah.
Where the word is Ahmad there means he just gets up from the table and says, I'm done. And he just turns them over.
Yeah. So remember it was Michael who restrained in Daniel 10, he comes to help Gabriel, who's having trouble with the prince of Persia. And Michael comes to his assistance so that Gabriel can go and complete his mission to go to Daniel. And then Revelation 13 mentions, right, Michael also, he's the one throwing the devil down, and he's the protector of God's people, is how he's presented in the scriptures here. So we
Can I-
saw back in chapter 12. So it could be that it's a little vague exactly what is meant by that. So yeah, Paul doesn't. I'm kind of leaning toward the Michael approach here. There's some spiritual warfare stuff that is just sort of behind the scenes going on.
Can I just throw out a quick thought?
Yeah.
That group called dispensational premillennialism, who believe that this is the Holy Spirit, they also say that during this period of tribulation, there will be people saved. So my question is, how can they be saved if it's the Holy Spirit that's extracted?
Mm,
Yeah, it's a, yeah,
It's problematic. It's
Yeah.
that theology, the dispensationalism has a problem.
Yeah.
With, if there's no Holy Spirit, but there's people being saved.
yeah, it's a complicated theology here, how it works
Yeah.
out.
yeah.
I'd like to, that's why when I go through this passage with the beast, I'm gonna take a few different takes on it. There's a couple of different people that I highly respect that have very different interpretations of this, but are interesting and unfortunately are not heard as much. But in any case, we come back to our passage here in Revelation 13. He does the signs and wonders, just like we saw in 2 Thessalonians 2, deceiving people. This is interesting. It was allowed to, he makes this great image of the beast, and he gives breath to the image of the beast. So the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Okay. So one thing about images we're told in the scriptures, if you remember about the idols and the images that are made for the idols, it says they have mouths,
But do not speak.
but they don't speak. Okay. So this image that is made here is given breath to speak. And those who would not worship the image of the beast are to be slain. So some interesting things here. One of the things that was happening in Rome at this time, that maybe this might be a helpful understanding of what this means, is, emperor worship, the worship of emperors was a common thing, but typically you worship those emperors who have died and sort of ascended to their glory. And you have statues of emperors who are dead. And so somebody dies, then you build a statue for them, and you might even worship them as a god. But around the time when the great persecution happened in the 1st century under Nero, Nero built a image of himself 120 feet high
Yeah.
in his house. And what I think this possibly could mean is Nero kind of takes this emperor worship to a new level of really presenting himself now while he is still living and breathing as the object of your worship, and demanding you to bow down before him. And so it was even offensive to the Romans that he was doing these things. The Romans despised him. They were just terrified of him, but they absolutely despised him. He was so, and he wanted to change the name of Rome to Neropolis.
Right.
He wanted to change the name of the month of April was going to be like Neronius instead. He wanted to name everything after himself. You've never seen anything. I sent you the notes. I don't know if you saw them, but I put some quotes in there from Suetonius about Nero that are pretty outrageous. And he is just of a new level. So it's possible what is being understood here is that Nero, the emperor, this political leader, this beast is so brazen. He presents himself, the living and breathing image, to be worshipped, not just, the memory of some other emperor. But any case, we get to again, whatever it means, I think is there are going to be lessons for us. And I think that lessons, however you interpret it, the lessons will be similar, which is helpful. So whether you understand it to be something just for them, something that's coming, something that's for all time, there are very important lessons to take from it that I think transcend whichever paradigm you're using to understand the text. And what is happening here? Verse 16, the way that the beast, will enforce, how do you get people to worship you? How do you motivate them? Well, what does it say in verses 16 and 17?
He's gonna mark them on the hand and forehead.
Okay. There's a mark on the right hand of the forehead, right? So that
They can't buy or sell.
Yeah.
Unless they have the mark.
Okay, so one thing is clear is that the beast, whenever he's operating, he will use economic forces to enforce his will, to get what he wants, which is the worship of the people. Now, the mark on the right hand of the forehead, let's talk about that. What does that mean? Well, what does it mean when you are marked on the forehead? We've seen this before. And the right hand, what does the mark mean?
Who's always being marked as one of God's.
Yeah, this is a callback to Revelation 7:3. We talked about the Lamb, how he seals the servants of our God on their foreheads. Remember that? Revelation 7, where before the trumpets are blown, before the judgment comes, he seals God's people, the servants of God, on their foreheads. That foreheads or the right hands is a sign of ownership. And so there are presented those who have the seal of the Lamb, who belong to him. In Revelation 13, there are those who have the seal, the mark of the beast, who belong to him. And those who belong to him are those basically who have, in their hearts, it's not a literal mark, just like the seal of the Lamb in Revelation 7 is not a literal mark on our foreheads. It's rather a seal setting us apart. These people belong to the beast. And as such, they are the ones who are allowed to operate in that economy.
So you said
yeah.
last week that it was more of a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And that, we can't see things in the spiritual world. So, we won't see it with our human eyes, but maybe when we become divine.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is there's a mark. How does let's talk about practically how it works. So there is a way in which the beast, that is the hostile government powers, know who belongs to them and who can participate.
IDs,
They
social
can use
security numbers.
They're social security numbers, IDs, all those are just, but think more in terms of how does the government know whether you belong to them or not?
Your social security number.
Oh, your number, but that doesn't tell them that that you are spiritually sort of one of theirs, that you are worshiping the beast and so forth like that. But there are certain things governments do.
Pledge of allegiance, pledge of allegiance.
There are pledges that people can take, certainly, but mainly as you think about it, it's I'll put it this way. This is how Solzhenitsyn understood it, because I don't know if you remember Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah.
He was a Russian who was basically suffered greatly under the Soviet Union in the gulags there. And because he was a free thinker and spoke the truth, and he kind of quotes his book, his phrase that he uses that became the title of a book that I appreciated, is called "Live Not by Lies." And he says, what happens is this. He says, the way that the government knows who belongs to them is they make the people speak lies that they know are not true. If they know, remember the book 1984?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Winston, he had to say that 2 + 2 = 5. They kept it, and he says, and it wasn't just enough for him to say 2 + 2 = 5. He had to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. And even that wasn't enough. He had to believe that 2 + 2 = 5 because the party told him that 2 + 2 = 5. If the party tomorrow came and said 2 + 2 = 7, he was then to believe that 2 + 2 = 7. So oftentimes these wicked powers will do things, speak things that are lies. And those, in a sense, who repeat the lies. And why do you repeat the lies? So that I can buy and sell, that I can engage in the economy, I can have a life, I don't lose my job, right?
Mhm.
So in our day, what are the lies that we're told we have to say?
Transgender pronouns.
That
Yeah.
that a man is a woman? That's one of the biggest lies,
Yeah.
right?
I just read an article about a nurse who lost her job because she was a Christian
Oh.
and she was refusing to use not negative, what do you call it? Neutral pronouns.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest lies, and everyone knows it's a lie. Everyone knows it's a lie. And why is the government pushing it? Because through this lie, they know who belongs to them,
Right.
and who doesn't. So you know immediately, okay,
Mhm.
you do not comply, you do not belong, and so you'll be severely punished. It's insidious, and when the beast has taken over, you'll see that they'll use different forms, but it is, they have means of not a literal mark, but yet the way that you answer the questions, the way that you reveal yourself, you show your allegiance. And if you're not going along with the party line, then you don't have the number. And if you don't have the number, you lose your job, you lose your living.
Well, isn't this being seen in Putin's Russia today? All the lies that they have told, and a huge chunk of that population is agreeing with it.
Yeah. And they're afraid. And that's how it is. And that's exactly how it is here. It's
Yeah.
like it's by fear that they're motivated. So now in this passage here, again, the lie that was being told at that time, the mark of the beast, the mark of what will be on their head was that simple phrase of Caesar is Lord.
Mm.
If you were to worship and just you can believe in Jesus if you want,
Mm.
but you must give glory to Caesar, give glory to Rome, and if you are to operate in this. And that's what was that's why the Christians were called atheists at that time, because they rejected the God that they were supposed to worship.
Mm.
All right, this
It
call,
reminds
yeah,
me
go ahead.
of Hitler and how he trained up the young people to believe his lies so that when they became teenagers, they were soldiers and would commit these atrocities because they were believing in the lies. And it just really always bothered me that adults that knew better would
Mhm.
follow the lie.
They're terrified.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
my mom grew up in that. She was
Yeah.
in Austria at that time as a kid, and in the schools they would use the kids to rat out their parents.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the kids would report if the parents weren't, following the program.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely, Hitler's another class.
I was
But
going to
it's
say,
interesting.
they're doing it in our school systems now. They're teaching
Yeah.
kids all these things about sexuality and transgender and yada, yada.
Yeah.
And you have arguments with your kids over what's true.
Mhm. And the kids will rat you out too.
Yeah.
You
luckily-
know, what's interesting is it's so fascinating about this is that you see this played over and over and over again, whether we're talking about Hitler in Nazi Germany, Stalin in the
Yeah.
Soviet Union, the Stasi in East Germany, in North Korea, in China. It's all the same.
Yeah.
They all operate the same way. And it's
And Putin is an old Soviet guy.
Yeah.
He's KGB. He is right. He is not the new Russia. He is
Yeah.
the old Russia.
This is true. This is very true. All right. Well, this calls for wisdom, folks. So John says, let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, what does that mean? Well, to this, I'm going to give you a couple different possible interpretations of it for your consideration. Again, there are some who are the futurists who would say that the number of the beast, we're waiting for the specific one who was to come, the Antichrist, who will fulfill all these things. We're still waiting on him. And when he knows, we'll be able to calculate his number. And all throughout history, they've been calculating the number of the beast. I mean, every century, you've got a different person. If I remember back in the 80s, they thought Ronald Reagan was the beast.
Yeah.
Because his name was Ronald Wilson Reagan. That's 6 letters, 6 letters, 6 letters. And so there he is. He must be the beast. Or the Pope, Martin Luther, and the Reformers always thought the Pope was the beast. You have all different types. Hitler is a very popular choice, of course. And you can find ways of calculating the number. But I'm that's the one view I actually kind of don't hold. And the reason is that John here is writing this to the church at that time, and he's telling them at that time, calculate the number of the beast, that it had to be someone or something that they would have understood, that it was not something, he says, that let the people at that time understand it. He says, let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. There's a sense, and with John, so much of the things that are happening here, there in Revelation, if you've noticed, there's a sense of imminence, that it's happening right now. The time is short. You know, don't close up this book. This is for now. This book is for now at that time. So my professor in seminary, his name's Greg Beale. He wrote a huge commentary on Revelation. His take on it is that, like all the numbers in Revelation, 666 is not literal, but symbolic. Now, in that case, what does 666 mean? What does the number 6 mean?
Man's number.
It is man's number, if you remember. Man was made on the 6th day. The 6 is the perfect number for man because it is just short of perfection. It just falls just short. And just like man, all we like sheep, we fall short of the glory of God. And the 666, why 666? Well, it could be we're dealing with, you'll notice the things coming in threes, the dragon, the beast, and the second beast. There's your sort of like a evil trinity. And his interpretation is that it's the number of a man he could have said it this way, it's man's number. And so that understand that we're talking about men and the glory of men, and this is the way of men, not the way of God. So that the dragon does his work through men and the powers of men. That would be just a brief take on his. So that's one way. However, yeah.
I look at this and I see that, okay, you're going to have, the beast that looks like it's been slain, but it survives. And then you've got the second beast that's, that's basically going to prophesize and prove that, build up the first beast. You just wonder how people, unless you're like, have, really studied the Bible, how are you going to know that this is fake?
Yeah. And that's part of it, is like, if you love the truth, there's a sense of he protects you. There's through the, as you love the truth. And I would say this, I've seen this with people where, even like a child who, even he doesn't understand anything, yet he knows something's not right here. Something's off. Later on, as we grow and mature, we can kind of spot these things. But there's other passages that talk about this. If you know what it is, what do we love here? One of the things you'll see is that the beast will never do is he will never give glory to Christ, will he?
Right.
And so, look, I don't know much, but I know that I'm supposed to worship the one true God. And you're telling me that I need to worship this image. And I know that where I'm not to make an image, because that's the second commandment. I learned that in Sunday school. Don't make an image and worship him. Yet you're going to bow down to this image and worship this other God because this guy did some great miracles. But I'm holding to what I know the word to be. That's what the truth is. And so for those who love the truth, they're faithful to the word and are not taken in by miracles and wonders that lead them away from that.
Hmm.
And by the way, can you think of anybody who has done signs and wonders or claimed to do signs and wonders that
Benny
wasn't eventually shown to be a fraud in our time? Can you think of any? I'm trying to think of the people who do these miracles and crusades and the signs and wonders they do, and I'm like, give it
Hinn?
enough time. What's that?
Benny Hinn?
Yeah,
Benny Hinn. He claims it all the time, right?
right.
And
But-
yeah.
Joni, what's her name? Estrada. She's a paraplegic.
Oh, Johnny Erickson.
Erickson, thank you. She had gone to one of his things to see if she could get cured.
Yeah.
And they selectively picked people.
Right.
And those that they knew they couldn't cure, they put off and said, we're going to leave the last for the best. Oh, we ran out of time.
Yep.
Yeah, they're awful.
Yeah.
They're awful.
Yeah.
They're total frauds. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like most of the people who do these signs and wonders, they're just absolute frauds from beginning to end. But even if they were doing real things, it wouldn't legitimize their ministry if they're preaching a different gospel, if they're leading people away from Christ. Look, as we see here, the dragon, the devil, can do his miracles too.
Yep.
So,
How
but
about,
yeah, go ahead.
how about Joel Osteen and the prosperity?
Yeah.
Um,
Now, to Joel's credit, he doesn't claim to do any signs and wonders. He just claims to make you feel good, and
Yeah.
so, you know, he's the nice guy of the prosperity movement, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah. But even there, it's the focus is on this world, on the things of this world, isn't it?
Mhm.
And plays a part of this. All right, 18, though, I do want to consider another question. So I have a couple quotes here for you. And part of the reason is you'll notice the footnote for 666.
Yeah.
And it says that some manuscripts have 616.
Mm.
Okay, so what's that about? There's apparently some of the Greek manuscripts of the book of Revelation have it listed as 616 as opposed to 666. Could that be significant? Well, I'd say this. I'm going to give you R.C. Sproul's take on it, which is
Yeah, I thought you were gonna go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And,
heard that just last year. That was pretty
yeah.
good.
So I think he's got a case. He says, look, calculate the number of the beast. Unlike other numbers in Revelation, this number, he says, we're to calculate, add up. So, and if you know, at that time, the alphabets were used for numbers, like in Roman numerals. The Roman numerals are actually letters, if you remember. So in Greek and Hebrew, they used their letters to represent numbers. So anybody's name could be added up and calculated to a number. So, for example, David in Hebrew, his name is Dawid, D-W-D. And if you add up the number of his name, D is the fourth letter, that's 4. Wow is the 6th letter, and then D again is the 4th letter. His name adds up to 14. So some make the case that that's why Matthew's genealogy in Matthew 1 keeps saying 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations from David to Babylon, 14 generations from Babylon to Christ, that he emphasized the number 14 because people knew that the Jews would know that's the number of David, their king, and that Jesus is the son of David. I think that's a strong case for that. So anybody's name could have a number, and just add it up. So what's the 666 then, if we're to add up the number? Well, again, we're thinking at that time now, who are our candidates here? Well, let me pull off for a second here and Let me share my other screen here, if I can find it. Oh, sorry, hang on a second, guys. Notes, okay. All right, sorry for the slow up here. I gotta get better at this. All right, I'm gonna pull up my notes that I sent to you guys. You want to see that okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So one possibility is the Emperor Nero, who, this is Suetonius. I just got his book. Wrote it around like 120 AD or so, called The 12 Caesars, where he gives a biography of all the first 12 Caesars that we've mentioned before up here. I listed them out for you before, from Julius or down to Domitian. It's actually pretty interesting. And here are some quotes I kind of pulled from it. He has quite a bit to say about the way that Nero treated the Christians. He was not a Christian, and he didn't have any particular interest in Christianity or sympathy toward Christians. But look at how he treated them. It says the tyrant Nero scrupled not to charge the Christians with the act of burning Rome. Oh, shoot. Why does it do this to me here? And he satiated his fury against them by such outrages as are unexampled in history. They were covered with the skins of wild beasts and torn by dogs. They were crucified and set on fire that they might serve for lights in the nighttime. Nero offered his gardens for this spectacle and exhibited the games of the circus by this dreadful illumination. Sometimes they were covered with wax and other combustible materials, after which a sharp stake was put under their chin to make them stand upright, and they were burnt alive to give light to the spectators. This man was sick. And the more you read about him, it's horrifying. But he also kind of fits a lot of things we learned about the beast here. He had this insatiable desire to immortalize his name and acquire a reputation which should last through all succeeding ages. But it was capriciously directed. He therefore took from several things and places their former appellations and gave them new names derived from his own. He called the month of April Neronius, designed changing the name of Rome into that of Neropolis. He seemed to be the most corrupted by profligate favorites who flattered his follies and vices to promote their own aggrandizement. He goes through his lasciviousness. He killed his own mother, and it was just this whole string of people that he had murdered, and just absolutely out of control. And his was the most significant, severe persecution of the church, definitely in that first few centuries. So what about his name? Well, in Hebrew, his name is Neron Caesar. I put up here the values, each Hebrew letter. You can see that's how they ordered their numbers. And so when you take Neron Caesar's name, that's how the Jews would have read it, Neron Caesar. You can see, you read from right to left here, N-R-O-N QSR. That's how they would have said his name. And that name adds up to 666. Where does the 616 come in? Well, he was also known as Nero Caesar. And the Jews knew him as Neron Caesar. So they're suggesting that perhaps some of the scribes who understood it to be Nero understood that 666 wouldn't resonate with their group because they knew him as Nero Caesar. And so we take out one N and you end up with 616. That's one of the theories of why they think Nero is the beast that he has in mind. He's certainly a candidate. And so whether it's him, but I think part of, as I want to close with this, is I think the important thing to realize is the beast is not dead. And we're not waiting for the beast. John even says that. Remember he says about Antichrist? John says, you've heard that Antichrist is coming? You heard that, right?
Yeah,
What does John say?
there are many antichrists already.
There are many Antichrists. They've already come. They're here. So, we don't have to worry about the beast of the future. Our focus is on the beast of the present. And being ready for that. And every one of us, we live in, as long as until Christ returns, there is the beast. manifesting himself in various ways, and we need to be ready for it,
Mhm.
to stand firm and to recognize that his days are short, and we do a great disservice when we sell out to him in order to get the job or keep the job, or when we speak the lies, when we compromise the truth for the sake of our pocketbooks and jobs and standing. He gives a warning here. As we saw back in that day, I think it still applies to us today.
Mm.
That was just a huge point in Live Not by Lies.
Yeah.
But the danger, because we don't like to be humiliated by the world. And so we have a tendency to repeat. If you don't have the courage to stand up, we need
Yeah.
God to give us the courage. You will repeat it just to avoid getting
Yeah.
persecuted.
Yeah. And for so many years in our country, we didn't need to, the beast was pretty weak here. It was basically a Christian friendly country, right? And we could speak our faith, we could speak the truth without fear. Well, that's changed now, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Now you speak the truth. You say to people that you're for the life of the unborn, that you are opposed to abortion.
Yeah.
And we're seeing our own government sending SWAT teams after this, FBI agents to come arrest people.
That's great.
We've not seen that before.
Mm.
So we need to be ready. But it's just for 42 months. It'll be over. Just a short time. We can make through. So, all right, I'm gonna stop recording here.